छोड़ रही है बस 35 mm है ना वो केजी के हिसाब से जो है 100 रुपीज केजी
As a child, my summer would be spent watching films with my grandmother. She would often book this entire cinema hall and we would sit on the ground floor in the stalls. And I would be sitting right behind her and we would watch films after films. I still remember those beautiful, colorful sets of Pakiza, Meena Kumari performing Inhi Lagone. And then from Calcutta, my grandfather would often bring these 16mm black and white prints of Devdas, Dobi Ka Zameen, Bandhani, and some of Raj Kapoor films. I remember singing to the songs of Shri Chazubis, Ramaiya Vasta Raiya. And here I am now, surrounded by film cans and films. The images I grew up watching, being washed away and turned into silver or colored bangles.
So Bipin, who is called Bipin Silver, he strips 1000 kgs of film in one go. 50 films stripped there to extract 3 kgs of silver. 50 films to extract 3 kgs of silver. And as a silver scavenger, as I call him, his personal preference is nitrate. As you know, nitrate films have a better silver component. Most people do not understand what the earlier, before 1951, you had most of the films were on celluloid nitrate, and after 51 what came was acetate, and later it became polyester. So the nitrate was something which was how most of the films got burnt in projection and other mediums. You know, growing up, I always thought film would last forever. Somehow I never thought these images that seemed so much larger than life on screen evoked such powerful emotions, actually had such a fragile existence. And as a filmmaker, you know, one is so engrossed, and if you talk to any of the filmmakers, they're so engrossed in their craft of cinema that one tends to forget that the life of our creators is, if they're not preserved, it is only for that short span of time, you know. It's like Mr. Zanussi used to say, the life of a film is like a butterfly. It flies, it sort of feeds on the flowers, and then it sort of, if it is not preserved well, it sort of dies out. And like all filmmakers, we are all engrossed in the world of creation that we forget what we create is completely not our creation, but borrowed from life. And what is this life? It is you and I, it's people like us. For me, cinema is a reflection of who we are and where we came from. And in order to look at the future, one has to look at the past. Unless we know where we came from, we will not know where to go and who we are. And Manny Faber has given this wonderful quote, which you can read on this. So what is this magic of cinema that we all love? Those beautiful images projected onto the screen. You know, I remember as a child fascinated with my grandfather's collections of Chaplin films. Every evening he would show me a Chaplin film and I would be sitting next to the projector watching Chaplin. Actually, when you actually put the film into the projector, it goes upside down. And then I would be looking at the lamp gate, and what fascinated was this magic, and Chaplin would come straight up, you know, it will go, his head will go down into the projector and you will see him straight up performing. And even today, when I see a film on a celluloid, it's so magical, you know, I cannot even tell you that it's that magic which I still remember that when I watched my first film, I cried. I couldn't believe the reality of the life around me being played on a screen in this dark hall where the light was the light streaming through the projector. And I just was fortunate that I was able to spend, be in the same hall as Jean-Luc Godard, one of my great, and I'm sure a lot of people have liked him, but I had the fortune to meet him just about maybe 20 days ago in Lausanne, where he lives. And he was 88 years old, and this is what one of the quotes he had given. not at that time but before, but cinema is not an art that films life. Cinema is something between art and life. Unlike painting and literature, cinema both gives to life and takes it. But let me get to the hard reality of what exists in India. The journey of Indian cinema, we all know that it began with Dadasaheb Phalke's Raja Harishchandra on May 3rd, 1913. And it was released as a 4-reel film, 3,700 feet long. Phalke has advertised the film as a performance with 57,000 photographs and picture 2 mile long, all for 3 annas. But this wonderful film, this Phalke's wonderful 2 mile long film, only 1 mile remains. And you can see the statistics of 1,700 silent films were made in India, of which the National Film Archive has about 5 to 6 so-called complete films. I doubt whether there's really a fully complete film, and about 10 to 12 films in fragments. So we've lost nearly 99% of our silent film heritage. 99, nearly, or if not more. The film industry in Madras made 124 films and 38 documentaries. In the silent era, only 1 film survives, which is Martand Varma, 1931, which is also a Malayalam film. By 1950, India had lost something like 70 to 80% of our films and heritage. And some of the reasons of this is that I've already said that there was a fire which took place at the Film and Television Institute, not at the NFI, Film and Television Institute. It was a Prabhat vault which caught fire, and many of the original negatives of the nitrate, because nitrate is highly flammable. And there's a very interesting story of Phalke, and this is something which Peek and I sort of discussed with me, that most of you believe that the first film surviving is 1913, Raja Harishchandra of Phalke. Now what happened is that Phalke, those days, he had to really struggle to show his film around, and he was carrying it in his bullock cart. And in one of his travels on his bullock cart, the film caught fire in that heat, and the whole thing got burnt. And he had that, print at that point in time, which he would showcase it everywhere. It wasn't like the later part where you make 100 prints or 50 prints, because Mrs. Phalke was making all the sprockets and things. It was a lot of hard work. The lab was inside their own house. So he went and reshot the film, the entire film. And Nair Sahab, who had collected Kalya Mardan, which also he got it in bits and pieces, and he had a Phalke diary and he put the whole Kalya Mardan together, told me that the reason he was able to make out the difference was that this film, which was 1917, which we believe is 1913, lying at the NFI, and which is publicized, is that all the women in that film were played by men, but in 1917, because he happened to get one woman, and she was actually the woman in that film, while the rest of them were men acting as women. But in 1913, everybody was men acting as women. So that one person, he was able to find out, and Phalke had written in some diary that I had reshot, and the only difference you can make out between my two versions is that one role has been done by an actual woman. And that is how, even that, the 4-reel film has remained only with 2 reels. The 2 reels have gone. During the Second World War, you're sitting in Calcutta, B.N. Sarkar's new theatre studio in Calcutta. It had it was completely burned down. And most of the films of the new theatres in the 1930s were all lost. We've already spoken about the NFI fire. Then you had major fires at Ranjit movie tour. Chandu Lal Shah, who lost heavily in the races, and it's said that he only burned down the whole thing, as too many people claim that in order to get, he was badly in debt, and to get insurance. And some of the most important films like Bhat Surdas and Holi and Kardar, all of them sort of got destroyed. If you really look at that, what were the real reasons for all these? One of the most important reasons was the climatic conditions. The climatic conditions were not ideal either for preserving. We know that the three major film industries came in three major port cities of Bombay, Madras and Calcutta, where the high humidity levels did its own damage. As most producers stored their films in labs or warehouses with no proper storage facilities. The usual practice for all producers was to pay an annual deposit fee to a lab to keep the original camera negative of the film. How the film was not successful, the producer would stop paying the deposit fee, resulting in labs dispatching the films to forgotten old warehouses. Now, one of the first losses, which is I think the most India's biggest loss, is that we don't have our first sound film. If you all of you know, the first sound film was Alamara in 1931, and I had the opportunity to talk to P.K. Nair and ask him that when he set up the National Film Archive, what did he do to get Alamara? And there is a small clip here which we went to Jyoti studio where he talks about it.
When I was assisting Gulzar Saab, he told me a story that when he was assisting Bimal Roy in Kabadiwala, Wazir Muhammad Khan, who acted in that film, used to often speak about singing the first ever song sung in the history of Indian cinema, De De Khuda Ke Naam, in the film Alamara. Unfortunately, nothing remains of the song except the story.
This is a place I came way back in the 60s. I think it was 66 or 67, mainly to meet Ardeshir Rani, the father of Indian talkie. I wanted to meet him personally to see whether we could get hold of some reels of Alamara, the first Indian talkie, Right from the beginning when the archive started, one of the films we were clearly, eagerly looking forward to acquire was definitely Alamara. I went in and saw him sitting in the front of a big table, and nearby standing was his son Sapurji. So I told him about the archive and what we were trying to do and our keen interest in preserving Alamara. He said a couple of reels must be lying somewhere here, though not the whole film. And of course he offered a lot of old glass negatives of the Imperial films and whatever material they have in the studio, and kept it. He has asked his son to hand it over to us. When we were walking down the steps, Sapurji was also with me, and he himself confessed that I myself have disposed of the 3 reels which my father mentions after extracting silver from it. It's a kind of a confession from the son of the great pioneer. You see, as an archivist, I refuse to believe Alamara is permanently lost.
जब रिलीज हुई थी, क्योंकि मास्टर विठल का बहुत नाम था, मास्टर विठल उसमें हीरो थे, जिल्लूबाई माँ बनी थी, मोती एक एक्ट्रेस थी पहले, वो वहन बनी थी, उसमें पृथ्वीराज जी थे, और रिलीज हुई। और पहले ऐसे था कि पिक्चरें जब रिलीज होती थी तो लोग काफ़ी देखने आते थे, बड़ी भीड़ होती थी। पूरे कलकत्ते में कोहराम मच गया। ऐसा हुआ कि अरे वो हीरो बोलता है, वो बोलती है, वो बोलता है, ये कैसे हो सकता है? ये तो हम लोग साइडेड मूवी देखते थे जिसमें कि जैसे जो भी सीन लड़ाई झगड़ा ये वगैरह वगैरह होता था तो टाइटल आता था। जैसे उसने कहा कि तुम यहाँ क्यों आए, जाओ यहाँ से, तो टाइटल आएगा तुम यहाँ से जाओ, तो पूरा हॉल पड़ता था। एक गूंज सी आवाज़ आती थी क्योंकि सब पढ़ते थे। तो आप वो मालूम हुआ कि तो टॉकी है, तो किसी को बिलीव नहीं हो रहा था। पहले सब जाते थे देखने को, औरतें भी बच्चे भी सब, कि ये आवाज़ कैसे आ रही है।
On my visit to the National Film Archive, a very interesting story, I noticed a huge pile of film cans lying in the basement near their vaults. and I was very curious to know where these films came from. When I asked Kiran Diwar, the film preservation officer, he told me a very interesting story about how Indian Railways have been unwitting contributor to film archiving in India. Often after film has had its run at the box office, producers find themselves with several prints of the film in hand, and not knowing what to do with them, they put them onto trains with no destination marked on them. They know that if the prints are unclaimed as per the Indian Railways law, it is the responsibility of the Indian Railways to deal with them. And this is how thousands of orphan cans found their way to the NFI, courtesy the railway. Now, what else really happened? The advent of television in India in 1970s, you saw producers scrambling to look for their film cans as they realized that there was a lot of money to be made out of these old films. You could show it on television, whether it was Doordarshan or local kendras or whatever. But for many, it was already too late. And specifically today, when people are now talking about the death of celluloid, for me, this has been perhaps, this has been a very emotional topic, as I grew up watching films on celluloid. The sound of the projector, the flicker, the smell of the film. But you have to accept the reality that, I still continue to shoot on celluloid as much as I can, and if I can afford to do it. But cinema is all about technical innovations. First it was black and white, then came sound, color, people were shooting in different formats, different cameras, different stock, and now it's the age of digital technology. But does that mean that celluloid no longer has a place in history? And a couple of months ago, we presented a 3-day event titled Reframing the Future of Film with acclaimed filmmaker Christopher Nolan and celebrated visual artist Tacitity to really talk about the adversarial narrative of film versus digital. The aim of the event was to speak about the language of coexistence, where each medium has its own specificity, and therefore one need not negate the other. And that is what we are continuously saying, that if an artist wants to use celluloid like all other European countries, he should be allowed to use. There should be things available for him. It need not be what is called into a popular form, but the choice the artist should have, as opposed to no choice today, where either you are forced to do a particular way or you are forced to go the other way. And we spoke about photochemical film and digital in their respective spaces as shooting, exhibition and preservation mediums. But the digital format has made us possible to restore film and see them the way they would have been the day they were released. Now I'm going to just show you a statistics of the shift from film to digital technology. And if you really look at the statistics, I think we were shooting on celluloid till 2014. It's just been 4 years, and does it look like it's been for ages? Does it look like that? It looks like the celluloid vanished some donkey years. We've got so used to statistics. India has turned its back on celluloid in a definite drift in digital technology, but contrary to the popular opinion, we continued to shoot on film till 2014. So what happened to the millions of reels of celluloid film that is in the storehouse of film heritage? Are they to be abandoned, forgotten, or we blindly believe that digital technology has all the answers? Archivists and filmmakers all over the world will tell you that the most crucial element, and I'm going to explain this thing for a lot of people who are going to be, and I have also brought statistics to show you, that we believe as archivists and filmmakers that the most important element is your original camera negative of a film shot, and celluloid is still worth weighing in gold. And I'll give you that example very soon. In India, the popular misconception among filmmakers, copyright holders and industry stakeholders is that digitization makes the original camera negative obsolete. Labs are shut down literally all over the country and discarded their film cans on scrap heap, and producers are not interested in taking possessions of their films. None of the Indian laboratories engaged in film restoration have photochemical facilities. Producers, copyright holders and public at large are quite satisfied with basic digital restoration at a low cost, poor quality DVDs and accessing film on YouTube. And I'm going to show you this chart, which is very, very important. Have a look at this chart of the different lifespans. And you can see the lifespan of what is hard drive, but look at the lifespan of celluloid. And I want to just explain this a little bit to people who are not aware. Today I went to meet Varsha Bansal, the granddaughter of R.D. Bansal. And the main reason for that is that she, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and I'm giving that example because most of R.D. Bansal's films are very famous and they're also directed by Satyajit Ray. Charulata, Nayak, Kaposh, Mahanagar, all these films are produced by her. And I said, you restored 5 years ago, they are on 2K format. You know that 2K is now a format which has gone out because we are on 4K. Tomorrow we will be on 6K, then we will be 7K, 8K. This game will go on because this is what they want you to keep buying hard drives. They want you to keep buying your mobiles. They want to keep changing your perception. And when we did the workshop with Christopher Nolan, we realized that the latitude of a celluloid is 16K. That means give yourself another 15-20 years still to reach to the level when 16K will probably reach your house. If there is, I don't know how many years. So celluloid is still worth gold. So what she will have to do again? She cannot upgrade that 2K. That means neither Netflix, neither Amazon will show because Netflix and Amazon is saying only 4K. And the theaters will not be able to show that film what she's done on digital. So what does she have to do? She'll have to go back to her original negative, start the process again and grade it up or digitize it for a 4K format. Then when it becomes 6K, she will need to go back. When it becomes 8K, she will need to go back. This game will go on. Unlike a celluloid where you just took the film, you don't have any server problems or you don't have anything. You just put it on manual on a projector and you would play the film and you will watch the film, right? So this is what has happened and most people haven't realized this. So what they've done is, they've gone and digitized their films and then they said, you can take this film. That's how we've got so many films with us. Because you can take this. I've got the main copy on my hard drive. Not realizing that the hard drive will probably last 3 to 5 years. And that example, I wish Farhan Akhtar can tell you, Dil Chahta Hai. He transferred all his film, 40-50 hard drives, Dil Chahta Hai, and he sat back. And he thought that, and you know, I would constantly be meeting him because we were shooting and we were friends.